Nina, I want to start with you. I'm sure that Kevin Kwan, who wrote the book that this is based on, had many suitors, people wanting to make his book into a movie. Did you just basically say on the phone or in a meeting, hello, did you see The Hunger Games? I'm the one that brought those movies to the screen, so you need me? How did you win him over, do you think?
No, that wasn't really my approach. But he did have many suitors. It was definitely a beauty contest, and we met in person. And we mostly just talked about, honestly, just the huge mainstream appeal of the movie. And that, he and I were just talking about this the other night, which is that on the one hand, everything that's been going on these last few weeks is just, it's been a dreamy experience. And it's been a dreamy experience throughout, honestly. We've had as you'll probably hear tonight, just an exceptionally tight knit group, an incredible leader in our director, and a level of devotion from the people involved that's unusual. But when we sat there at our big premiere, we were like, this is what we pictured. I mean, it's beyond any expectation, but it is what we always set out for and what we always imagined, what we always hoped for. And so I think that meant a lot to him, which was that it wasn't a specialty film. It wasn't, oh, this will be great for the Asian market. It was like, this is a great movie for mainstream audiences around the world, period. And also that we've done a lot of very faithful adaptations and that we work closely with our authors, that they're what matters to them matters to us, and that was meaningful to him. But I think there was just a very hard to miss how heartfelt our love of the material was and how ambitious our aspirations for the movie were.
And kind of on the same note, John, my understanding is that if you guys had wanted to make even more money on the deal, you had other offers from streaming services, but it was super important to you to go with a traditional movie studio so that this movie was seen by audiences on the big screen. Talk to me about that decision and how important that was to you.
One, I love Netflix. I'm a faithful subscriber. I watch it all the time. I want to do business with them. No, the argument was they have this massive subscriber. If you want eyeballs, immediate eyeballs all around the world, no waiting, no depending on opening weekends or reviews. Like that is the way to go. It is part of the future. And then the other way was something that Kevin and I had talked a lot about of the goals of this movie, which was there is a message that is said in the cinema that it is worth your time and your energy to leave your home, to fight traffic and parking and stand in line and pay for a ticket and gather your friends and put it in your calendar and then sit in a room and then turn off the lights, let go of everything else and say, tell me a story. And to have an Asian cast, all Asian cast, in romantic roles and heroic roles, comedic roles, and to present it on a platter like that, I think it trickles to every part of pop culture when you do that. And to have a giant studio like Warner Brothers to anoint that and spend tens of millions of dollars to promote that sends messages that this is good business. And I don't know if we've said this yet, but I actually didn't have the power to say either thing. It was Nina and Brad and John that when the decision came down, they said, we defer to Jon and Kevin. That was unheard of, like that all their lawyers, I'm sure, killed them after. So I have to give that respect to them. And again, I don't think we've said that in the interviews yet, but they empowered us to make that decision.
Constance, how did you psych yourself up for the really intense scenes that you have with Michelle Yeoh? I'm thinking about Mahjong, I'm thinking about the scene on the staircase. What'd you do special for those days?
I did a lot of preparation, and then I threw it away. Because you want to prepare and have everything that your character does and says. You want it to have like emotional history, like a resonance. So I built all of that, but then when you're actually in the scene, I just throw it all away because I want it to feel alive and not pre-planned, and I want to work off of what Michelle is giving me and whatever might happen. And she was just such a lovely person to act across, and I think it brought out the best in both of us.
Absolutely did. Henry, your story fascinates me. Your background is in television hosting, so I like you a lot. But I could never do what you just did in this film. You blew me away.
Thank you.
Did you know you had this in you? Has acting been an aspiration for a while, or did someone have to kind of flip this switch in your head that you could do this?
That guy right there. I was a television host, a presenter for a long time, doing sort of investigatory kind of travel shows for BBC Discovery Channel, and I get a random email asking me to introduce Jon Chu to me, and to jump on Skype. He has a project in mind, and of course I've heard of Crazy Rich Asians. I live in Singapore. I've been there for the past 6 years, and it was the biggest news. And I was like, oh my gosh, maybe it's like a small sort of like small part, like a cameo. I could probably manage that. And he worded his emails very carefully from the beginning, and he was like, oh, I'm still casting. There's a couple of roles sort of hanging around. So we'll send you the sort of the script, and will you read for me? I get the sides, and it's for Nick, and suddenly I panic, and it's either that sort of flight or fight moment, and at that point I realized that it was such an important sort of moment. It was either I throw myself 100% into this, or I don't. And in the run up to that moment, I've been the biggest fan of cinema for my entire life, and not only sort of enjoying the stories that have been told, but the actual craft of how it's being told. So, it all sort of helped, but I definitely think it was John's initial face and face. He's got a beautiful face. Faith. But also, Penotti's and Nina's and Brad's and everybody's. So I definitely had the help, and working with Constance, and an amazing professional who gave me so much to work with. I did my best.
He gave me a lot of good stuff to work with too, because I had to be in love with him. Wasn't that hard.
Ken, I'm curious, you've built this amazing career, and most of the things that I see you in, you're surrounded by non-Asian actors. So what is it like to step on the set of a project like this and look around that table, at the dinner table where we meet you, and to see all of the other cast that you're working with on this?
Yeah, it was incredible because, my point of view of kind of Asians in cinema and TV, I think this renaissance has really started with Fresh Off the Boat, just from my worldview, is that, because now it's on its 5th season, and I was fortunate enough to guest star on Fresh Off the Boat a couple times, and also because of Fresh Off the Boat, I was fortunate enough to have my own show, Dr. Ken, where it was based on an Asian American family, where we had 5 Asian American series regulars. So I think the movement. Oh no, thank you. And also, not many people know this, is that the producers of Fresh Off the Boat, they would put in calls to ABC and saying, you have to pick up Ken's show. And then you have to give him the back 9. You have to give him the 2nd season. And they fought for me just as hard. And so I was already, surrounded by a lot of love behind the scenes. And when this happened, it was everything I had already had the privilege to experience times 100. It was, we're in Kuala Lumpur, we're in Singapore, and to me, this was like, what an amazing cinematic foray, of something that I think deep down inside, every Asian American actor wants to be a part of something like this. So it was nothing but pure joy, my first scene there. Yeah.
When you think back to the making of this, what was the one set piece that was kind of the biggest headache or production challenge for you all?
Well, it's a very competitive category. I would have to say that getting Gardens by the Bay, we were actually very, very fortunate. This is where having a company that has its a home in Singapore and had some pull there because that Gardens by the Bay location, which is for the big, wedding party. I mean, I there's so many locations that I really love in the movie, and there were a lot of challenges finding the location for the young family home was very hard. That does not exist in Singapore, so that's in Kuala Lumpur that we found that. And that when we first found it, it was really run down and it had monkey poop on the floor.
It had no floor. It had no floor.
It was like it was collapsing on itself.
Oh my God.
And Nelson Coates just brought it to life and made it look so beautiful and amazing. But we were down to the wire on getting the location for that, which of those amazing, electric trees. I mean, there's no location like that was going to be a good substitute if you didn't get it. And so just relentless politicking and pushing and encouraging and nudging, and Jon would go back and forth from KL to Singapore to fight for that for us, but then also having to pull it off because it would be open all day long, and then the second that they would close for the evening, we would run in, make our movie, and then make ourselves scarce for the next day and come back. So that was also a bit of a challenge.
And there was a family affair because while we were in KL, we didn't have the location yet, and Kevin Kwan visited, and he said he understood we were stressing, and he said, well, you should ask Janice, and Janice is one of the cast members, Janice Ko, who plays one of the aunties. Said Janice's husband is the head of tourism in Singapore. I'm like, now you tell me? So we called him, and he said, listen, it's tricky. It's their 5th anniversary. Gardens by the Bay is a national monument, and they were doing a light show that was built years in production to project every night while we're shooting on all the trees, on all the super trees. And Janice, ended up helping us through, and we got right up to the Prime Minister's office. We didn't have to get to the Prime Minister, but very close. And even 5 days before, they're like, yeah, this is great, but you can't have any lights there because you're going to ruin our show. And I'm like, that's going to be a little tricky. But it worked out.
Thank you for making a romantic comedy because we need more of those. But congratulations on just a wonderful film.